Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 1700A, and today's date is October 26, 2018, and the title of the episode is The Narrative Shift is Almost Complete. Once completed, boom. Now, before I get started, I just want to make an announcement. I uploaded a new interview with Bob Kudla. It is on the X22 Report Spotlight YouTube channel. So all you need to do is go over to Spotlight, type in X22 Report Spotlight. It'll bring you right to the interview, or go over to x22report.com or newssentinel.com. Scroll down a little bit, look over to your right-hand side. You can play the interview right on the site, or go to Steemit, which is steemit.com/@X22Report, and you can play the interview right on Steemit. Let's get into the economic collapse financial news. Now, this whole entire time where we're seeing the economy deteriorate, we've been talking about how Trump, the Patriots, they've been setting up the narrative for this entire collapse of the central bank system. And what we're seeing right now is that this narrative shift, well, it's almost complete. Is it going to be completed tomorrow? No. What we need to watch for and what we're looking at is every time the Fed raises the rates, Trump will come out and contradict the Fed. And he will elaborate on why the economy is not going to do well while the Fed is raising rates. We just heard from him where he said that the economy will be wrecked if the Fed continues raising rates. And he's going to come out with even more as we move forward. Now, we know the target date is around the middle of 2019. It could be a little bit after that, a little bit before, but that's the target date. The narrative shift is going to be completed around that period of time when everything starts to fall apart, because during this period of time, it's the buildup. It's the buildup of the narrative to get everyone used to what Trump has been saying, so he can go back in time and say, listen, I said this. It's the Fed. They're the ones who are causing the crash. They're the ones who are making this problem. And the economy right now, as we've been watching, we've been following, we've been looking at the indicators, it is deteriorating very, very quickly. Yes, I know on the outside, the reports are that everything is great. Actually, if you look at the mainstream media, they continually tell us how this is not a real economy, the economy isn't as good as Trump is saying, things like that, which we knew this was going to happen. But his plan is to show that the economy is doing well. This way, they can't turn around and say, your economy that you were managing fell apart. He could say, no, the economy I was managing has been doing very, very well. Show me where I lied. Now, if they do this, they're going to be pointing their fingers at themselves and at Obama and all the other presidents. They're not about to do this, because this would then destroy everything that they're trying to do. So they're not going to go and say, hey, no, these numbers, we know they're manipulated, because all he has to do is go back and say, oh, wait, you know something? You're right. If we go back in time, they're all manipulated. So you're telling me that we've been working under manipulated data all this time? And this goes back to Obama, the Clintons, the Bushes, all the way back. Who's responsible for this? And then they can start digging. So the mainstream media is going to kind of stay away from this. But they're going to try to make the point that the economy is not doing well, while Trump is showing all the same statistics that Obama showed, that the economy is doing fantastic. And he's pushing it to the limit here. He needs the economy to look fantastic. Now, people who are living in this world, who, are working, who are trying to make ends meet, they know it's getting tougher and tougher as time goes on. They understand that they're not really getting raises. Those people who are looking for jobs, they're not seeing those high-paying jobs. Those individuals that are coming out of schools, who are graduating, they realize, I have a lot of debt. I can't find the work I'm looking for. Yes, I can find low-paying jobs. I can live with my parents, but I'm not looking for that job that will allow me to live on my own and pay for all this debt. And if you look at the Umich, you can see this is dropping right now, because people are seeing that the rates are moving up. Home sales are starting to decline. Auto spending outlooks, they're sliding. And it's getting worse and worse as time goes on. Now, think about the narrative right now. As people are seeing this, and they're hearing the president out there blaming this on the Fed, people are starting to put two and two together. Well, the rates are moving up and home sales are declining. The rates are moving up, auto sales are declining. The rates are moving up. I have a huge amount of student loan debt and it's getting harder and harder to pay. This is what he wants everyone to understand and realize and make the connection, so when the narrative shift happens, they are ready to point the finger at the central bank. Now we're starting to see a delinquency crisis hit all-time highs right now, and this is especially in the student loan market. Now the student debt crisis is about to take a turn for the worse. The next generation of millennial graduates could be trapped in an insurmountable debt load. Over the last decade, the federal student loan segment experienced an explosion in growth because they said, listen, go back to college, whatever college you go to, take out a student loan and you'll get this fantastic job. Now, a lot of people that go to school, and I'm not knocking college or anything like that, you get this degree, which is kind of worthless unless you're specifically going for something where you're going to be an accountant, if you're going to be a lawyer, if you're going to be a doctor, and there are many other, specific degrees that you can get, and you can get a specific job. But if you're just getting a general degree in, something that the college has made up, and they make this up quite often, it's going to be very difficult to find a job. And we see that Jerome Powell, he's warning that the levels of student loan debt could now slow down economic growth over time. Of course. I mean, this is kind of common sense right now, because instead of going out and paying for retail, instead of going out and purchasing a home, you're paying off this huge amount of student loan debt. Now, millennials have frantically tapped into student loans, and it's up around 157% in cumulative growth over the decade. By comparison, auto debt has grown by 52%, while mortgage and credit card debt fell by 1%. Student loans that are owned and securitized, outstanding, has breached the 1.5 trillion level during the last 2 years, making it the second largest household debt segment among all Americans after mortgages. Now, analysts are warning that a perfect storm in student loan bubble is brewing, and we know that this has been brewing for a very long time. We've been reporting on this. Student loans are being issued at an unprecedented rate, as millennials are conditioned to believe that higher education is the only way to get ahead. And we're seeing the storm clouds gather. The perfect storm is coming, because when you add this, you add the auto loans, you add the mortgages, you add the other bubbles, you add what the Fed is doing now, raising rates, it's going to be a complete and utter disaster. Now, we're also seeing that there's a high level of delinquencies in student debt, and they have reached the 90-plus day delinquency rate of all household debt. Americans who attended for-profit universities and community colleges, they make up around 70% of all defaults. And Judith Scott Clayton, a Columbia University associate professor of economics, she said that poor working-class folk were suckered into worthless degrees with the promise of a better job, but it only left them with high debt loads. And to make matters worse, the Federal Reserve continues to reduce its balance sheet, and they're hiking the federal funds rate, now at 2.25%, which has forced borrowing costs higher in the last several years. Now, these student loans are breaching 5%. This is the highest rate in almost a decade. And as they move up, they have to pay back even more. And most of these individuals, they don't have the high-paying jobs. This is why they implemented these programs where they'll adjust your student loans to the part-time job you have, or the low-salary job you have, or if you have no job. This tells you something. So we are approaching a period of time where everything is going to happen all at once. Remember, propaganda illusions, they can only last for a certain period of time. And once everything completely falls apart, which we see it's happening right now, and as the Fed continually raise rates, and as Trump continually contradicts the Fed, where he's setting up the narrative, when everything is completed, boom, the entire system is going to collapse. But things are going to be a little different this time. The central bank is not going to be in control of the narrative. In the past recessions, the past depressions, the central bank had full control of the narrative because they had the help of the mainstream media. The administrations were on board with this, and they went along with whatever the central bank said to do. This time, it's going to be completely different because this time, the central bank is going to be left out in the cold. This time, the narrative shift is going to be pointing to the central bank. And this is going to allow the people to understand and realize what is actually happening. But we need to remember one thing that's very, very important. We need to go from point A all the way to point Z. And everything in between, that is the transition. And the transition is going to be very difficult. We're going to go through many, many different stages. I mean, for many, they've been struggling since the financial crisis. Other people have not been hit. This time around, a lot more people are going to get hit. This is what people don't understand. They think, well, it's only going to be those people. No, you're going to find out, and I don't wish this on anyone, that jobs, well, they're going to be laying off like crazy. The stock market's going to come down. Stores are going to be closing up, which we've been seeing already, and those people are already affected. And those people that were safe on the first go around might not be safe this time around. Then we bring in the pensions. And we bring in even more problems because then you have those people who are retiring who work their entire lives, and all of a sudden they're retiring, and now they're telling them, listen, we can pay you, but that $2,000 or $3,000 or $4,000 pension a month, we can pay you around $800. Is that okay with you? Well, it's not going to be okay because they won't be able to live. And other people might not even get anything. And your house prices, where you're sitting there and you've owned your house for 15, 20, 25 years, think about 2008, when all of a sudden the housing prices dropped dramatically. What do? Yes, they were pumped up, but this time it's going to be completely different. They're not going to be able to create these bubbles because we're going to be transitioning into something else. Yes, you will hold on to your house if you can. And on the other side, it will get better. Everything will get better on the other side. Don't get me wrong. But again, we have to go through this middle part, which is the transition. And many people are going to have a very, very difficult time. And for those people who have never been through it, might even have a harder time than those people who've been through it already. Because those people that have been through it already, they know what to expect. They know how to weather the storm. They've cut corners. Those people who've been living the same exact life, they might not be able to handle it, where maybe they can't go out to dinner. Maybe they can't, pay for extra things. They won't know how to handle this, and they'll say, why do I have to cut all of this? I've been living this life. Why do I need to go from 2 cars to 1 car? Why can't I live in my house anymore? And it's going to be tough for many people. And I don't wish this on anyone. It's not a fun thing to go through. But we are going to be going through this transition, and it's going to be difficult for many people. And this is why, for the longest time, I've been telling people to be prepared. I mean, Trump was already out there saying, if the Fed continually raises the rates, they're going to be responsible for wrecking the economy. He's already giving the warning that it's going to come down, and the Fed is going to be blamed. So for those people saying it's not going to happen, it is going to happen. And we can see that we are approaching that time period. And once everything is completed and the narrative shift is completed, boom, that's when everything starts to fall apart. And that's when we start transitioning majorly into the next system. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.